In the winter of 1723, when the reefs off Cape San Antonio wore a white crown of foam, a small brigantine called the Nocturne disappeared from every chart. She bore a black pennant and a captain known in taverns only as the Black Pirate. For 2 centuries, the name fell like a bruise over coastal towns, half tale, half accusation. What came to light in later years was neither coin nor legend, but an inventory of something worse. In October of 1897, an underlaborer named Mateo Ortega, digging a ditch behind the ruined parish of St. Clarice in the Júcar Bend, Hispaniola, struck oak. They pried up an iron-bound chest sealed with wax. Inside lay a ledger, a child's toy, and a small silver locket engraved with a silhouetted brigantine and the letters S.B. The ledger had entries in 3 hands, an Admiralty clerk, a ciphered list of places, and a child's neat marginalia that read, "Keep the light hidden. Certain names recur like tides." A confidential dispatch of 1724 lists Earl Simon Holbrook and Josiah Fenwick, Kingston. A margin beside Fenwick reads, "For discretion, wages given in wine." In 1740, the inventory of No. 7 Church Row lists a boy, age unknown, among its furnishings. The house still stands, brick and dark as a cellar. Witnesses long dead told of children who were not children. A seamstress of Port Royal remembered twins who traced maps with dust. A fisherman swore that on certain nights Gallows Bay echoed with a small, throaty singing, rising and falling like the sea. A carved lantern appears beside ledger entries and upon stained glass in merchant chapels. Some have called those who kept the lantern in order. Kearney, writing in 1903, recorded a letter from a naval officer. 2 men in blue came at midnight, masks of blackened cloth. One left a silver pipe inscribed, "Guard for the Crown." Professor Elias Kearney of London examined a copy in 1902. He noted an instruction stamped upon a returned Admiralty note, "Private, for eyes of the board." 2 masked men in naval blue carried the original away that night. The parish bell stopped swinging. The ledger wandered through decades like a quarrelsome thing. A clergyman in New Providence found an entry dated 13th of November, 1722, Isla de la Sangre, 0320, and burned his copy. In 1936, the archivist Archibald Wren discovered a docket, 42B, cargo manifests removed. Property seized under royal warrant. Wren worked evenings by lamp and broke the cipher. The coordinates mapped to a ring of Ks east of Jamaica. The anagram spelled La Casa de los Niños, the house of children. What the ledger concealed was not gold, but persons. The Nocturne had carried children taken from ports in the Caribbean and Africa, listed in code beside sums of money and obscure phrases, adoptions, apprenticeships, repatriations. Some entries bore the initials R.W., returned warrant. A footnote in an otherwise blank memorandum of 1941 called the enterprise an operation for retrieval authorized by persons, acting in the interests of the Crown and private, mercantile partners. The House of Children proved less a single shelter than a network. Basements in Kingston, a cellar under a townhouse on Church Row, a hidden cove between 2 unnamed bays, all held remnants, dolls with glassy eyes, child's thumbprints on murals, a shallow grave beneath St. Clarice marked only by a toy and a pewter spoon. In 1962, workmen in Kingston found a lock and key, iron board and salt black that matched a notch in the ledger. Behind that lock lay a mural of a brigantine and a masked man whose eyes were painted blue as coal. Names in the ledger traced through parish registries and into the rolls of merchants and magistrates. Men who rose to office in the 18th century carry, between lines of houses and titles, the quiet annotation of a child's presence. Orphan servant, ward to the merchant, a child marked R.W. might be noted as returned, and then vanish from one parish only to appear years later as servant in another household. Not all who sought the ledger survived contact with it. In 1978, the archivist Lillian Archer boarded a night ferry to Júcar with a microfilm copy. She was found 3 days later clinging to a skiff, speech gone, fingers enmeshed with seaweed. Her journal held one entry: "They gather in the ruins. They sing the names. She died without explanation. The film was never developed. In 1999, the journalist Thomas Valdez followed coordinates to Gallows Bay, a crescent of sand between two coves on an unnamed isle absent from modern charts. He found a ruined jetty and stones cut with ciphered numbers. In the sand lay a child's shoe and a pewter spoon struck with the royal cipher. Valdez's notes were later found charred. His wife kept a scrap of black fabric with 2 holes stitched into a toy. The ledger's strangest page is brief. It lists ports of departure, dates, sums, and beside one name, the small letters SB, and, in a hand that trembles like a child's practiced stroke, the name Silas Black. The ledger ends with a date, 1st March 1724, and beneath it a crude drawing of a door. When the page was shown in a local broadcast in 2011, the town's lights failed for 90 seconds. A caller later said the candles on Church Row blinked out in perfect order, as if someone had walked and extinguished them by hand. No cause was found. The ledger points to a truth that is not dramatic in gold, but terrible in its ordinariness. The Black Pirate's cargo was dispersed into ordinary lives. Children were parceled out as apprentices, servants, wards, placed beneath the roofs of merchants and magistrates who built halls and chapels. Their names were excised from passenger lists and stitched into parish rolls. The ledger's last entries name men who later held office, who gave alms, who attended confirmation and wed in the town square. The final and worst revelation is this. The ledger records something else beside names. Marks that match carvings over doorways in certain old houses. A carved ship above a lintel, a series of porcupine quill scratches beneath a stair, an iron key hidden under a stone, small domestic signs. The ledger's cipher indicates that the key was less to a chest than to doors, to cellars, to basements, to rooms where a child's belongings were kept, and where some nights a lit candle burned long after household servants went to bed. Do not look for bullion beneath reefs. Look for seams in parish records, for sudden wardings that begin one day and end as sons or servants the next. For a small locket with a brigantine impressed upon it. For a pewter spoon bearing a royal cipher. In houses that are old, run your fingertips along attic beams, and you may find the ridged mark of a child's thumb, a seal, not of play, but of claim. Researchers who traced the ledger reported a recurring sign. 3 porcupine quill scratches in a tiny triangle near thresholds or beams, as though a child's hand had signed a solemn, private covenant. Remember this mark. The ledger's final marginal note in the child's hand reads, "They watch the doors." That page is kept under glass in a small coastal museum. The night it was placed there, the museum lights flickered, though no storm blew. The curator slept badly. He found, at dawn, a neat ring of porcupine quills upon the sill. The key that had once opened the cellar of Church Row, the iron board key matched to the ledger, was gone.